Hello and welcome to High Point Music's Gear Reviews. In today's episode we've got a bit of a follow-up tone zone happening where I was chatting to a friend of mine and he was asking about what the Marshall JTM sounded like using an EQ or a tone shapeable boost to be able to manipulate the input signal, just so we can see what kind of sound quality adjustments we can make by processing our guitar sound with some pedals. Because the JTM only has that active treble tone control on the front panel, I thought that would be a good thing to check out. So that's what we're going to do. I'm running a Tim boosterizer and a Boss GE7 EQ straight into the front of the Marshall JTM1, and it's running through the cab clone, which is the same thing we used in the review video for the JTM1 on its own. This is what it sounds like, my Fender Stratocaster. I've just got the Marshall running at about 9 o'clock on the gain control, and the tone control I've set to 12 o'clock, so it should be a pretty neutral sound as far as that goes. I will change the gain control a little bit further down just to show how the gain reacts, but we'll get into that shortly. So first things first, I'm going to run the Tim boosterizer. The Tim boosterizer is part of the new pedal range from Tim Guitars. It's a small format version of his tone boost. This particular version just has a volume and a tone control. It's nice and simple to use, and it does this. So we go from, we'll set the tone control to neutral, turn it on, get some volume going. Push that a little bit harder. So we're going from this clean tone to that crunchier kind of sound. Almost like stacking pedals, except we're using the output level of the boost to clip the input of the Marshall, as opposed to relying solely on the Marshall's preamp stage to clip by itself. And to manipulate the treble response or the bass response, we can just wiggle this active tone control back and forth. So, pretty dark kind of sounding. That up a bit on the tone. Let's go up to about 1 o'clock. Back to the Marshall. So you can hear it's definitely clipping that front end, and the tone control setting that little bit higher is getting pretty bitey. So we'll sharpen our teeth up a little more, push the tone up to 9 o'clock, which is pretty trebly at this point. Pretty great way to get those riffs and things that little chirpier, a little more bite, a little more bark. Really draws that sort of mid-bitey kind of tone out of the guitar. Creates a lot of focus. And if we push that all the way forward, it's pretty sharp. But when you go to a neck pickup, really is a nice way to change the tone of the actual guitar, and using the different EQ sound and the different amount of volume to clip the amp to a different sound as well. So to go a little bit higher on the gain, let's push the Marshall up. So 12 o'clock on the gain on the Marshall. With the volume sitting at midday or 12 o'clock, it's going to be a little bit quieter, stops the amp from clipping a little bit. So one technique you can use this for is to prevent your amp from clipping. So maybe your amp is the biggest dynamic point, that's the clipping stage you want to get to, and instead of using the boost to clip the amp to that stage, you can stop it from clipping to that stage. So going that little bit thinner kind of sound, or drop the volume down. Really handy because the JTM doesn't have a foot switch, so that's a great way to be able to get 2 or 3 different sounds out of it. We then go a little bit harder to 2 o'clock. Definitely hear it getting crunchier and clipping more. A little more treble to keep that nice and bright. A little more volume. There's a fair bit of background noise with the boost cranked to that point, but there's also a pretty big difference in the amount of dynamics and distortion. And then lastly, we'll push the Marshall up to its maximum loudness. Very, very crunchy. Dial the boost on. A little more treble, a little more volume. Volume up. Tone back to 12. Crank the boost. So that's the tone boost running into the Marshall. Definitely a great way to get an extra layer of dynamics or to control the amount of signal going into the amp, and a pretty cool way to get those sounds from a very simple setup. So now let's run through a quick, simpler versions of those boost techniques with the GE7 EQ. So again, we're going straight in. We've got the Marshall set back to 9 o'clock. We turn the EQ on. I've got it set with a bit of a bass cut at the moment. Use the level control to bring that up. So pretty good way to bring the bass down and the clipping down just by taking that little bit of bottom end out. Accent that a bit more with some more gain. Back up to 12 o'clock on the Marshall. So using the EQ like this is a great way to affect the harmonic range. Something like the boosterizer or other traditional boost pedals will have a specific frequency response, whereas by using the EQ as the boost, you can shape what's happening to your harmonics as it clips into the Marshall or any other valve amp for that matter. So I'll do a quick little mid scoop, nothing too crazy. I'm just going to pull a little bit out of 800 and a little bit out of 1.6, tiniest bit of 400, tiniest bit of 3.2. Drop the volume back again. Still getting a pretty big tone change. And then of course, if you wanted to, you can just accent your treble response by flattening the EQ sliders. On the Boss GE7 there is an indentation, so when you slide up to its 0 position or its neutral position, they snap into place. So we're just going to push our treble a little bit and go from somewhere like here. Quite that extreme. As opposed to and as you can probably hear, the thing you really need to be careful of when you're using a tone control, either an active or an EQ style pedal, is if you add more signal or you take signal away, you can unmask or produce extra background noise. So definitely something to keep an eye on if you're going to try this with an amp that's already at the point of clipping. So there you go, 2 ways you can manipulate an amp like the Marshall JTM1 that only has a tone and a gain or tone and volume control by using either a graphic EQ or an active boost pedal. If you've got any questions, don't forget to leave them below. Thank you always for watching. Don't forget to follow our social media, find out what's happening at High Point Music, and I'll see you in the next video.